Welcome to the Noir Poise podcast, where wisdom is power is more than just a motto.
It's our way of life. While we don't claim to have all the answers, we're dedicated to delving deeper into different topics through meaningful conversations. As a duo, we bring different viewpoints to the table, enriching our joint journey towards growth and poise.
Join us as we explore and unlearn to relearn while striving to navigate life with poise. If you had to define faith in your own terms, what would you define it as?
I would define it as believing in something against not all odds, but against the odds.
Okay. Would you say that faith and manifestation kind of work hand in hand or not?
I don't think they're the same. You need faith to manifest, but I wouldn't say they're the same thing.
Okay.
Because you can manifest something that you think is obvious,
Mm-hmm.
and you could also manifest something that you think is against the odds.
So the reason I ask you is because I feel like I hear this a lot, and I think I might have had this way of thinking at some point in my life too. But having faith that something will happen and or manifesting that something will happen, but doing the bare minimum to make that specific thing happen. I feel like a lot of people tend to have that mindset. I can remember a time in my life where I had that kind of mindset where I'm like, okay, I'm going to have faith that this opportunity is going to open up for me, and I'm going to do the bare minimum, the same thing that every other person is doing for that same type of opportunity, and expecting something to occur. It got me thinking about the whole concept of faith without works, and how I think we often tend to utilize that phrase a little bit incorrectly.
Yeah, I would say more than often. I think for the most part, each time I've heard someone say that phrase, they've used it, in my opinion, incorrectly.
So what does it mean to you?
To me, it means the phrase faith without works, I'm assuming the complete phrase is faith without works is dead.
That's the biblical phrase that a lot of people tend to use. But in a general aspect, I've heard people who are not in the Christian faith have that same, it's a common saying. It's one of those things that's like across the board. People understand that you have to believe that something's going to happen, but you also got to work hard to make it happen. And so I'm asking in a general aspect.
In a general aspect, I would compare it to anyone who follows sport. At some point, you've heard or seen a prospect that seemed like they were ultra talented and gifted, but for one reason or another, had poor work ethic, and then they never made it to the top. I would say that's an example of someone of faith without works, because people look at someone like Michael Jordan, like Kobe Bryant, and all these like great basketball players and think you're just naturally talented, when realistically they had the faith hard, but they put the work in.
Right.
They were gym rats. They were in the gym every single day working.
Yeah, working.
But compare that to someone who, maybe in high school you was the man. You had to do the bare minimum. But now you went to college and you were able to survive. But now you're in the NBA and you think you can, because you have what it takes, you think you don't have to do the work, so you never get anywhere. That's the most practical example I could think of at the moment as far as what faith without works to look like.
I like to look up actual definitions on Google. And of course, there's always multiple definitions, but I just kind of grab the first one that I see. So faith, we all have our own definition of what it is, right? Depending on whether we're talking about religious factors or if it's personal to us, but we all kind of have, it's believing in something or in someone or in whatever it is. But the definition on Google says complete trust or confidence in someone or something, which is what we basically thought it was, right? And then I Google work. Work is activity involving mental, physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or result. But what I also looked up was, because this phrase ties in so much to spiritual aspects, I was like, you know what? Let me just keep scrolling and see what else comes up for the term works, because we know language is is different depending on what language you're speaking, right? But I actually saw it in Hebrew, and it said it meant serving God. And I thought that was interesting because then it had me thinking, like, so what does serving God look like in terms of work, and how do you correlate that in your day-to-day life with works? Because work now can look completely different than how it did 200 years ago. And it could look completely different than how it'll look 200 years from now, right? So, like, it's something that I think is often changing. But the reason why I was like, I'm going to mention that is because I love that the actual work definition said in order to achieve a purpose or result, but it also said it's involving mental and physical effort, because oftentimes we think the work is physical and only physical. And that's why I mentioned what I mentioned earlier, where I said I had a mindset at one point in time where, let's say it was like I'm looking for a job and I'm believing that I'm going to find this opportunity, I'm going to find the right job, but I'm doing what everyone else in my position is doing to get a job. So what's going to make me stand apart from the rest, right? So that would be a representation of the physical work. But I was like, the mental aspect, I think, is what we tend to forget when we're talking about this phrase, faith without works.
In what ways?
In the sense, like, we often will think like, for example, you use sports, people like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, right? We don't know them personally, but they're not just known for their greatness physically. While that's a great aspect of who they are and how they started, but someone like Kobe Bryant, when you hear him speak, you recognize how much mental work he's actually done in order to push himself to achieve the physical things. So that's what I thought of when I saw that. I'm like, I thought of the fact that we often try to do the bare minimal physical work, but we don't recognize how important it is to do the mental work while believing. And I think that's often what stunts our growth or leads us to a position of being disappointed, is because if there's 10 people looking for a specific kind of job and there's only 3 spots, right? So now if every single one of those 10 people are applying the same thing physically, right? And there's 1 or 2 of them that's applying that same thing physically, but also doing the mental work to make themselves stand apart. Because I truly believe that if you do the mental work, there'll be a shift in your physical work. So if 1 or 2 of those 10 is doing the same physical work, but also doing the mental work, I believe that they'll stand apart and they'll probably fill those slots.
You know what's interesting? As you're speaking, at first I disagreed just off the bat because I thought that the work is the most important aspect. But then I actually thought about our relationship. And before, what set me apart, I think, was my mental state, my state of mind.
Absolutely.
Because when we first met, like, I didn't really have anything, going for me, but I
don't like when you say it like that, by the way.
It's true, though. I mean, I was young, so it's fine. But I had the faith. You knew me. I would say too much faith. Like, I was believing in the most random things to happen.
I wouldn't say it's too much faith. I think you had a little bit of unrealistic kind of thinking sometimes.
That's a polite way to put it. But as we're speaking, I'm just thinking about it like, I think what set me apart for this relationship was my mental process. So I'm saying that just to say, like, it's amazing what you just said is 100% true. Because if I had focused on, let me just go to the gym, let me try to get as much money and do the work aspect, I don't know where I'd be mentally. I don't know where we would be. But I was focusing so much on the mental growing mentally, that I think I naturally gravitated towards you and you gravitated towards me. So I love that you said that, because it really just brought things into perspective for me.
No, for sure. I think it's the mental. That's a big aspect, because I really believe that the mental starts to translate in the physical. And that's what with that example you gave, I think that's what actually occurred with you. You were putting in a lot of mental work and also physical work as well, but there was a lot of mental work that was going into your development and your growth that as time went on, it started to show physically. Like because of your way of thinking and your experience through internships or whatever the case is, it made you more desirable for certain roles where other people may have had more years of experience than you, but because you had a combination and you were well-rounded, it then sets you apart from the rest. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say as far as like the faith without works. I think we often think of it as like, yeah, I believe it's going to happen. I'm going to pray, I'm going to fast, whatever the case is. And then I'm going to go out and apply to 1-2 jobs, or I'm going to save my little coins and put 10% here and 10% there and think that's enough with the economy that we're in. And it's just like, if you think realistically with inflation, and this is just an example, of course, if we're talking finances, with inflation, setting a little money aside for savings is not going to be enough. So no matter how much you believe, if you're not applying a certain type of work, not just physically, but mentally, it may never happen. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm a believer that it may never happen because you actually aren't prepared for it to happen if you're applying the same 1, 2, 3 steps that everyone else in the world is applying.
I wanted to actually ask you, thinking back to when you had that unrealistic balance between faith and works, why do you think you had that mentality?
Definitely Christianity.
But could you be more specific? Like what part of Christianity, what aspect of Christianity made you think that way?
I think in the culture that I'm raised in and the family that I come from, we were very big on faith. Like everything was, if you want something, pray for it. If you need something, pray for it. If you you need a change, pray for it. Don't get me wrong, I do think my family did apply a lot of work, but it was work that probably worked back then in the 90s and 80s, but it won't work now if I was to apply those same kind of techniques. And so because of the world we live in now, and because of my career and certain things, I realized in trying to find certain roles and trying to move in a certain direction, not just career-wise, but in general, I started to realize that like it wasn't enough for me to do what everyone else is doing or has done or said will work. Because if you're applying certain things physically, but you're not doing things to make a mental shift, I just don't think the physical will occur because you're not going to be prepared for that opportunity. So, what was your question?
My question was, why did you, in your opinion, why did you think that way?
So I think the reason why I had that thinking at one point in my life is honestly because of my upbringing. It was what I was taught. It was what I saw. It was what I was exposed to in the church. Everything was just believe. All you have to do is believe and it'll happen. So even though I was applying work, it took me years to realize that the work that I was applying, while it may have seemed like it was enough at the time, I wasn't applying enough mental work. That's what allowed me to make that shift.
Not speaking for everyone else, but I know for me, I had that mindset because whether I realized it or not, I expected special treatment. And
That's interesting.
I wouldn't say it as like far as just Christianity, because I think people outside of Christianity probably think the same way, but especially if you're growing up and you're hearing that God can do anything for you,
yeah,
it's going to be a testimony for you. You hear people saying things like, I could have been in that building when it caught on fire, but God saved me. What about everybody
when
else?
there's like 10,000 other people in that building.
So I do believe that the environment we grew up in, it caters to that mindset where this will happen for you.
I can actually
deserve
see
this.
that, yeah.
And I went for the first half of my life thinking that way, where I could do the bare minimum, and because of favor or because I expect because of faith, I'm going to get my way, to the point where I wouldn't study as hard as I should. For example, when I used to do when I used to coordinate the Friday night youth services, there was one time I had some kind of test to take, and this was during the youth anniversary. And I'm like, I'm Friday night coordinator, I have to be there, but I knew I should have been home studying.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, if this is a test, God's gonna look at me like, wow, man, you
Ooh,
sacrificed that time to be in church. Wow, I love that.
you failed that
Long
test,
story short,
huh?
I failed the test.
Yep.
I was
Sounds
looking
about right.
afterwards like, God, how could I fail? I went to Friday night. Like, I expected special treatment where if I did this, not applying the work, even if I didn't do the work, I would still get the same or better results. And I had to
Yeah, that's
adopt a
crazy.
mindset. This was actually life changing for me, where I had to tell myself, no one's coming to save me.
Mm-hmm.
No one's coming to do the work that I did not do. So if I don't get a certain result from my life, I can't blame anyone else. I can't look
But
to my left, to
yourself.
my right. I can't even look up or down. I have to look to myself like, you
Why
should have made
haven't
it
you do?
happen.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. I agree with that 100%. Because I think that's a scary mindset to have. And a lot of us have it. A lot of people go through life with that mindset and don't recognize that that's why they're not as far as they want to be, or that's why certain things hasn't happened for them. And we have a way of telling ourselves like, oh, it's not meant to happen then if it hasn't happened already. And it's just like, nah, bro, you haven't applied what you need to apply to get it. And it's a hard pill to swallow, honestly, to actually sit there and tell yourself like, I'm responsible for the life that I have right now. And that's what we've been telling ourselves, that where we're just like, okay, this is what we desire. This is what we want. This is what hasn't happened. How can we get there? What can we change to make sure it happens? How can we create our own opportunities? How can we start just making shifts rather than complaining or blaming life, blaming people, blaming God, when in reality, we have everything that we need in order to get the results that we want. It's all about taking accountability and then applying what it is that we know, and then going out and finding out the information that we don't know. When I think of faith without works, that's the message that I get from it now.
I'm curious to hear why you said that this was a hard pill to swallow. Because for me, when I finally came to this realization, it was almost as if I spent my whole life walking under clouds, and finally I saw sunshine. Like, okay, it's in my hands now. I don't have to rely on any external factors or anyone else to help me out. It's up to me now. So I know that I'm in control. So why did you describe it as a hard pill to swallow?
Well, the accountability aspect, in my opinion, was a hard pill to swallow because there's a lot. There's a lot that I have not accomplished that I thought that I would accomplish by this age. I'm not gonna lie. For a while, I beat myself up for it. So the accountability part is what's difficult, because it's just like, dag, all this time I thought I was doing everything right. Like, it's never easy to realize that what you were doing wasn't actually the right thing. And maybe not say it wasn't the right thing, because at the end of the day, I learned through those experiences. I gained lessons that now I can apply. And it led me to have this type of mindset where I understand that I can't just sit down and wait for things to happen, but I have to make moves, and not just make moves like, oh yeah, I'm going to get up and work out once or twice a week, because that's what we do, right? Like, we'll do the bare minimum and be like, yeah, but by summer I'm going to have abs. I'm going to have a six pack. Like, realistically, with that type of application, those are not the results you're going to get. So now with life, I look at it as like, I can't apply the bare minimum. If I want this type of result, I need to put in full pressure. And taking accountability for that, for me at least, was difficult. But there's a side of me, I'm not going to lie to you, and I think this is most people, we lazy.
Yeah, I would even describe it as lazy, to be honest. I think it's just who willfully wants to work hard, honestly. Like, if I can find a shortcut that gets me to my destination without me skipping a beat, I'm going to take that shortcut.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think it's lazy. I still think it's lazy, because going back to like an example, like working out, how long have I been saying I'm going to start working out again? It's been quite a couple months now, right? And I have not. Hopefully by the time this episode airs, I will be fully back into my routine and my body looking right and tight. But right now, no, I've been saying I want to do it, but I haven't. And I think that's the hard part, is the initiation, like actually starting. And I think the same goes with this. Is it's one thing to sit there and be like, okay, I have the ability to do this, but then now you got to ask yourself, well, what do I do? Because for me, that's a question that I'm like, I don't even know where to start. I have no idea what to do. Like the ideas that I have and the things that I always desired to do, or I'm interested in doing, or I felt like I'm supposed to be doing, even if I don't want to do it because it scares me. For the most part, I have no idea where to start. I don't have guidance, like someone who's done it before, who's able to like walk me through it. It's on some like, okay, now you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that part is what's difficult. It's like, do I want to do that? You know, if I'm completely honest, it's not fun. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like, yeah, do it. It's mad fun. It's not fun. But what's great is the development that comes from those experiences. At least that's what I've been finding in just starting certain processes, or just like taking that first step. Because for me, that's always been difficult because I'm not a risk taker. I like to play things safe. I'm like, all right, we're going to plan out plans A through D, and we're going to start slowly with A. And if we do not see results by the time we're on this step on A, we are moving to plan B. Like, that's how I've always operated. So now with the knowledge that I have, I'm like, I can't operate that way anymore. And so it's taking me completely out of my comfort zone. And it's scary, to be honest with you. So that, along with holding myself accountable, along with, dag, really? Like, nobody coming to help me for real? And then on top of it, having no idea what to do, where to start, where to go. And you just have to kind of like jump off the cliff and prepare for whatever it is that occurs, whether that's something that you wanted to happen or something that you didn't want to happen. Now I try to apply the mindset like, all right, we're going to do this. If it doesn't work out, we'll gain lessons from it. If it does, great, we'll gain lessons, and then we'll continue moving forward. But that's not fun.
Yeah, but even you just literally just said how, dang, no one's going to come to help me. I think it goes back to, like I said, subconsciously, we all expect some kind of special treatment, that somebody is going to come.
No, when you said that, I agreed.
Yeah, somebody's going to come save us or help us. But whether that happens or not, I think people should just be prepared not to get any help and to just figure it out on yourself. And help may not come the way you expect it to come.
Yeah, because I was actually gonna just cut you off with that. I agree. I get where you're coming from, and I agree to an extent. But I do think that help does come. It's just not in the form that we want it to come. Like, how many times you've told me multiple times the past couple weeks with like trading and stuff, how opportunities have just randomly come to you, but you're doing a lot of work to get yourself in certain spaces that will allow for those opportunities to happen. And those opportunities are, in a sense, help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
so it's just probably not the help that you're expecting or would want, but it's still help. It's all about our perspective.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I just had this realization as you're speaking. I used to think that I would just sit and the miracles or whatever would come to me. That's it's
crazy, bro.
I think that's a lot of people, where
that's wild.
You got people right now sitting down who are maybe unhealthy, and they're just thinking one day I'm gonna feel good.
I've heard that.
Or some people who might be single, looking for somebody, just sitting at home doing nothing, thinking that man or that woman just gonna randomly, I'm just gonna meet them on the subway or at the coffee shop or whatever the case is. I even heard people say, I mean, in full confession, I've thought about this myself, like maybe this could happen, where you just open your door, find a bag of money.
Jesus.
The Lord just dropped a duffel bag full of money.
That's extreme. Door. I'm not gonna lie. I never thought that way, but I can see that. I've heard people make comments like that, so I know it does happen for sure. Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I abandoned that way of thinking and just thought to myself, if I want to get in shape, then I have to do the work to get in shape.
Right.
If I'm not looking for a spouse, obviously, but if I was looking for a spouse, I
Better
wouldn't
not
be.
be now.
I wouldn't be at home just doing nothing. I'll be trying to meet people out there. Same way, if I want a bag of money, I'm gonna work hard and take a bag to the bank and withdraw some money to have that bag of money. But I say all that to say, what you just said about just trading wise. So there were, just to give a quick background, there were two courses I wanted to take that were really expensive, and I'm like, I'm not willing to spend that much right now on a course. I'm not even sure if the course is gonna deliver. I'm just gonna take the high road and try to piece everything together. Search YouTube, look for different
University be working though.
look for PDFs, and I was doing that for a moment, but then you have so many different information out there; it's hard to decipher. Long story short, I'm in a couple of Discords, and I saw someone talking about one of the topics I was interested in. So I decided to just message them and ask them a question, since it seems like they knew more than me. That person so happened to take the course that I wanted to take, and said that he had the information available, the courses available, and sent it to me.
Yeah. And that's help. Believe it or not.
That happened with both courses.
Yeah.
Within the span of probably like a couple months. But I'm like, what are the odds? But I say all that to say, I was doing the work, and then I got the type of miracle that I was expecting without doing the work. So it just goes to say how I think we often have it backwards, where we get the miracle, then we'll see the results when we do the work, and the work causes
the miracle to occur.
What we would call the miracle.
Exactly. I love that. So that's exactly what it is.
I think personally, all a miracle, what we describe as a miracle, is something that we can't explain.
Right.
So
out of the ordinary.
Yeah, something out of the ordinary. Like when I go back to my parents' home and they're like, the cable's not working, I don't know, and I go put it on HDMI 1, and they're looking at me like, oh my God, how did you do that? To them, it's a miracle because they don't have the knowledge, but I have the knowledge. So to me, it's like, that's normal.
Deep.
So if you're looking for a miracle, you're really looking for knowledge.
I was just about to say, that's so deep what you just said there. Like, what's standing between us and the miracle is basically the knowledge. And in order to gain the knowledge, you have to apply the work. You have to apply the work.
You won't get the knowledge without the experience.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, but that's what I was saying about the whole helping thing is like, while, it may seem like, but no one's coming to save you. Like, people are not just going to show up at your door and be like, I heard you need to pay this bill. Let me hand you a little bit. Like, although some people, they have those stories or whatever the case is, but you can't live life expecting that to occur every single time, and you're not making a change to improve, is what I'm saying. But with the help aspect, is that example you gave with the trading, that was help. It just wasn't the help that you would look at 5 years ago and think that it was help, because you wouldn't know what to do with that information, because you didn't, at that time, you wouldn't have applied all the work that you have applied in the past 5 years now to gain the knowledge that you have gained, to make yourself visible on that Discord, to then be introduced to that person who has more knowledge than you, to be able to take that risk and ask that question, so that way you are now presented with the help that you desired. A lot of times we don't do the application part, applying the work and putting ourselves in certain positions or in certain rooms that will allow us to be seen for that opportunity or that help or that miracle. And I think that's the difference now compared to like how we used to think. And I think that's the message, right? It's recognizing what kind of work are you putting in? Because at least for me, that was it. I thought I was working hard. I was working like 3-4 jobs. You remember 3-4 jobs. I'm in school full time. I'm working overnight, I'm in full-time ministry at the time too. I thought I was working OD hard and doing things that were different just because I had 3 to 4 jobs at a time for however long it was, working overnight, then going straight from overnight to another job. And then there's Friday night. You got to be at Friday night, or you got to be there for Monday step team, or you know what I mean? Like doing all those things. In my mind at the time, I thought I was working. And I heard Denzel Washington say something to this extent. I'm sure many of you have heard it, but like sometimes you're moving and you're just moving in place. And I think that's also a question to ask yourself, like, the work that you're applying, is it making any changes? Are you growing from it? Because sometimes it doesn't make a physical change right away, but it's making a mental change. And that's the part that I focus on now is if it's making a mental change, then it's going to be making a physical change at some point in time because it's changing who you are at the core. You know what I mean? But sometimes I think we do that, which is what he said. We are running like we're running a marathon, but we're running in place. And we think that we're applying work and we're not. And for me, now that I'm older, I'm like, yo, that's what I was running in place. I really thought having so many jobs at one time was going to help me out. And I was still trying to be dedicated in ministry. And I'm like, God sees my efforts. Like, that was my mentality. Like, God sees my effort. I thought I was special. Goes back to what you said. I was like, God sees my efforts. He sees I'm not lazy. I'm doing what I have to do. I'm studying. I'm in pre-med at that. You know what I mean? Which is not easy, like sacrificing my study time. And I thought I was doing something. While I don't regret those things because they've given me a lot of experience and allowed me to learn a lot of things. I've met a lot of people, through those experiences. But the point is, it wasn't the right work. If I was applying the right work, I'd probably be so much more further, to be honest. So, yeah.
I mean, the good thing is I've learned to look at life, whatever needed to happen to get you here needed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true.
Because if you think of yourself when you were 25, the knowledge and wisdom you have now, would you be able to carry it?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. I mean, who knows? I don't know. We never know. But I see what you're saying. I probably wouldn't even know what to do with it.
Yeah,
so like
that's what I'm
sometimes,
saying.
we have to go through certain experiences in order to like get us to a certain position. I see what you're saying. Definitely true. Definitely true.
I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way, but I would say some of my best success has come without a formal prayer. And I use the word formal because I think whenever you think, you meditate, you're praying. You have your desires. You're in a sense you're praying for it.
Yeah.
But compared to what I used to do, where I would maybe fast for a specific reason, saying I need this, or get on my knees and say, God, this is what I want to happen. I'm counting on you to make it happen. Most of my success, I think, most of my greatest success has come without that aspect. And I think I've shared this story on a previous episode before, where there was a time when before I traded, I would get on my knees and I would pray.
Yeah.
Each time I'd pray, and I wouldn't say every time I would lose, but there was a good amount of times I would lose. And I'd be like, it's the devil trying to discourage me and all that stuff. But the last time I ever did that, I felt convicted because I just heard an internal voice say, get up. You know what you got to do. Just do it. Because a lot of time I think because of our faith, we get careless in what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. And
because we think we're like, God, you got it.
Yeah.
You
like,
got me.
Or a statement I'm sure everyone has
me.
heard before, where I did my part. I'm waiting on God. And I was like, wait, I mean, this is all your part.
Yeah.
Like, you got to do everything. So that's what I mean by since then, I've just adopted a mentality. If this is something that I desire, I have to go out and get it.
Yeah, you got to create your own opportunities at the end of the day, and not using faith as a replacement for the work. Because what that example you just gave was basically like causing you to do less work because you were replacing it with faith. And I think that's important to recognize. You can't replace one for the other. Faith is faith, work is work. Like, God, I'm going to let you handle this part right here because I don't feel like doing it. Because although we don't say that, that's low key how we're saying. That's what we're saying. You got it. Like, yeah, cool. I get the intent of it, but there are often times if you really reflect on yourself, you'll often find that we be lazy. Sometimes we're lazy. Sometimes we're scared to take certain risks. Sometimes because we don't know where to go, we stifle and stunt ourselves and we stay still instead of going out and seeking the answers. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that now I try to apply is like, I don't replace my work for faith.
I heard someone say this before, that one of the worst things that could happen to you is for you to get rewarded because of your bad habits. Because then you think that that's what brings you success.
Yeah, and that's why for me it goes back to the whole mental aspect of it, like doing the work to shift your frame of mind and the way that you think, your perspective, the way that you approach situations, because that's ultimately what's going to help you apply physical changes. Because the minute you start to work on your consistency, practicing discipline, taking accountability, being responsible for your actions and not making excuses, the minute you start to do little things like that and then some, you'll start to naturally notice changes because one, you're not going to give up as quickly anymore. It's going to force you to stick to a regimen and go with it. It's going to force you to have structure. And in doing little things like that and applying the mental work, I really believe that you'll start to see positive changes physically. And you'll start to get revelations, to be honest with you. Like you'll start being awakened to certain information and noticing more because you're doing so much internally. Another thing I had to get comfortable with is being uncomfortable. Let me rephrase that, because Lord knows I am not comfortable with being uncomfortable. But one thing I am learning to do, and I'm recognizing how important it is with this topic, is being okay with uncomfortability rather than running away from it. Because I'm the person where I'm like, oh, this don't feel right. I'm not taking this risk. We're not doing this. It's not working. There's no results. I haven't seen results in 3 months. I don't think this is for me. Like I have been that person. And being able to try to be as consistent as possible now and trying to apply discipline in certain aspects of my life has allowed me to go towards directions that are very uncomfortable. And I'm gonna be honest, I be shocking myself now. Like I do. Even like this podcast, I'm just like, I would have never in my life, if you told me that this is what I was going to be doing, like, I'd be like, there's no way. I was in choir with like how many people, and yes, I am tall, but I would always make my way right to the back. Okay. Like I never in my mind would think that this is something that I would do, but honestly, it's a testament to really the effects of the internal work. And that's basically what we're saying. Like that will automatically start bringing opportunities to you. Not even bringing opportunities to you. You'll start to have the boldness to create your own opportunities, I should say. And you'll start to gain the knowledge to create your own opportunities. Thank you for spending your time with us. We hope you gained some knowledge today that'll promote poise in your life. We have new episodes uploaded every Thursday right here, same place, same time. Until next time, you can follow us on Instagram at Noirpoise Podcast to stay connected. That's NOIRPOISED Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback.
And remember, your wisdom is power.